Hello everyone and welcome to Blaugrana Everything, and welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the podcast as well for what is actually going to be a nice lengthy podcast episode, which we're going to first of all be taking a look at all the fallout from El Clasico, everything that happened post-match and maybe a couple of hours or days right after the match, people's reactions, all that kind of stuff. We're going to also go and talk a little bit about Gavi's contract situation, because there have been some changes in his situation with the contract. Remember how he was registered as a first-team player at the end of the January transfer window, but that decision was of course challenged by La Liga in the courts, and La Liga of course they got a favorable verdict. We'll go and talk about all of that, and also we're going to talk Caso Negreira, which is in English the Negreira case, or like I like to call it, Negreira Gate. We're going to look exactly what's happening here, and more specifically at the latest developments and what all of this means as a result, and what FC Barcelona are doing, and what us as fans as well, what we can expect from FC Barcelona, not just fans of Barca of course, but also maybe fans of other teams, what this might mean for you too as well. Please do stay tuned, and I hope you'll be able to listen to everything, starting with, like I said, that fallout from El Clasico. But before we get into this, I'll take this time now to do some housekeeping, because once I start going, I'm really just going to go and I'm just going to be non-stop. So if this is your first time tuning in to the podcast, or even find the channel on YouTube, I do hope you will enjoy everything that you will see. For those watching on YouTube, I'll do my best to throw in some videos to keep you entertained, just throw in some random stuff which won't get the channel in trouble, get me a copyright strike or demonetized or anything like that. Not that I'm monetized yet, but I'll throw in some stuff to keep you entertained. It might not always correlate with what I'm talking about, but just know that I'm doing it to please you, alright? It's completely for your pleasure, for your viewing pleasure, so you don't get bored by just watching a picture that is static and hearing a voice, which I don't know, maybe you find my voice boring, which is completely unthinkable for me. But in case you do, I will have some random videos just rolling, which you can look at while we're talking. Sometimes, of course, it will coincide with what I'm talking about. Like you will see once I get into some of the El Clasico fallout, some of the stuff, it correlates with what I'm talking about. But anyhow, I just wanted to set some ground rules for what's about to happen here, okay? For at least the next, I don't know, maybe 20 so minutes, that's what's going to be happening. And for those listening to the podcast, of course, then congratulations. You're going to have the full pleasure of just hearing my nice, sultry voice, and you doing whatever you're doing, whether you're driving, whether you're on a bus going somewhere, or you're just taking a walk. Maybe you're working out in the gym and you prefer to work out to the sound of somebody's voice rather than music. If that's your thing, this is what you can do with this episode of the Blaugrana Everything podcast. Okay, so now that I have managed to kill time by spending about 2 or 3 minutes just on my intro, we're going to go right ahead and start looking at some of the fallout from El Clasico, starting from, on a lighter note, some of the things that we saw coming out from the dressing room after the match. So, the typical videos of the players celebrating and all that kind of stuff. But afterwards, we did see a picture on Instagram of a certain Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Yeah, he was in the Barcelona dressing room and he was with the rest of the guys. And just, he went in there, I guess, to congratulate them. But yeah, Aubameyang looks like a fun-loving guy, so I can imagine he got in there and it was just vibes with everybody. And obviously, having been part of that atmosphere after an El Clasico win, he probably just couldn't resist going into that dressing room. And I don't blame him, It was good scenes, at least for us, I think, as Barca fans. But apparently Chelsea, they're not liking it, and they're thinking maybe he should just go ahead and terminate his contract. That means he can come back to Barca, I guess, on a free. But yeah, like I said, on that lighter note, on less of a lighter note, looking at some of the reaction that has come out from this El Clasico, from the opposite side of the El Clasico, it's obviously we've been on a high with this win, you know what I'm saying, and everything good that's happening, 12 points clear and all of that. But on the other side of the divide, yeah, coming with the rhymes, in Madrid, I think the mood, of course, has been a bit more sour than that. And it's just, it's got me thinking a few things. First of all, are Real Madrid just sore losers? Like, is this something that's been happening with them, but we didn't get to see it because, of course, they were beating us, clasicos previously, whereas this time around we're the team that's dominating these matches. And does that leave them with maybe a bit too much of a sore feeling, like they feel they should be beating us? And I'll explain to you the reason why I'm saying that. Looking at the past two Clásicos, Copa del Rey semi-final, one where we beat Real Madrid, as well as this one at Camp Nou, there's something which was said by the likes of, say, Modric, Courtois, and, Ancelotti after that win at the Bernabeu, where their general sentiment was that FC Barcelona were lucky, that FC Barcelona did not deserve the win. We saw Courtois saying things like FC Barcelona scored with a very lucky goal, that was a completely fortuitous goal that Barcelona scored in that game and won by. And the same we heard as well from the likes of Luka Modric, Carlo Ancelotti as well, saying Real Madrid dominated that match and Real Madrid deserved to win and FC Barcelona didn't deserve to win. And all of that, it just left me wondering, like, wait, okay, hold up, is this the same Real Madrid that last season went through the knockout stages of the Champions League, really deserving to have lost all of those ties and even deserving to have lost the final, but having won all those games? Is this the same Real Madrid that's coming at us and talking about Barcelona didn't deserve to win that game? Because I'll tell you what, when Real Madrid were winning those matches against Chelsea, against, City, against PSG, against Liverpool, obviously, as a Kool-Aid, I didn't want to see them win those games. But when they did win those games, I was, I wasn't out here saying, oh, they didn't deserve to win. Because at the end of the day, if you put the ball in the back of the net and you have a game plan which stops the other team from putting the ball in the back of your net, and you end up winning the game, then I think you do deserve to walk away with the win if you came in with a game plan, you executed it, and it went just well, which is exactly what happened at the Bernabeu for Barca in that Copa del Rey semi. It was pretty obvious that if Barcelona went toe-to-toe with Real Madrid in that game, they would have probably been demolished because of the fact that they didn't have any tools to hurt Real with in the final third. So Barca played to their strengths. They played to their defense, and they built a plan around that, and it worked. So, is this just complete sour grapes that we're getting now from Real Madrid? And it continued as well after the 2-1 at Camp Nou. After Barca go 12 points clear, we see in the post-match presser and whatnot, Carlo Ancelotti saying things like, we go back to Madrid with serious doubts about the offside. And I was just there like, what is this? What is this man saying right now? Like, is this Carlo Ancelotti? Like, seriously? Has the losing to Xavi gotten to him so much that he's now out here making this kind of statement? You have to remember here, right? Carlo Ancelotti is like the gentleman, okay, of footballing coaches like ever, right? Everybody respects him. I used to respect him, I think now, like, he's just falling into the same kind of behavior that we would have seen from, like, is Jose Mourinho, or like, I don't know, maybe if like an Antonio Conte was in charge of Real Madrid. I know for a fact Zidane wouldn't be coming out talking like this. And I mean, is it in part because of the whole Caso Negreira deal? Because if it was, then I got some bad news for Ancelotti. We'll get to that later on. Some bad news for, anybody of Madrid persuasion on that front. We also saw Marco Asensio on his Instagram posting his celebration from when he had scored that disallowed goal, thinking it was the winning goal. And I mean, obviously, he didn't really have to say exactly what he meant by that. We can all pretty much guess what he was trying to say. And just generally in Madrid, they're trying to spin this kind of angle like they were robbed with that offside. Just like last week after we beat Bilbao, there was a lot of people trying to spin stories like that Muniain handball wasn't a handball, like Barcelona robbed Athletic Bilbao there as well. And it's pretty interesting that this is coming from Madrid, okay? That wasn't coming from like the people in Bilbao and whatnot. I mean, sure, Valverde said he felt it was a harsh decision. Didn't say if it was a wrong decision, but we had people from Madrid saying, it was a wrong decision. Just like this one, I'm guessing to them wasn't offside, even though clearly dude was offside. So like, it's got me thinking like, are Real Madrid now just so loses. And is this also what we're seeing in the behavior of guys like Ceballos and Carvajal, who, I guess maybe in some attempt to create new rivalries in El Clasico? Because you remember how back in the Mourinho days, we did have this sort of mini wars that were going on the pitch, right? We had guys like Dani Alves on our side, the fiery guys who were always on edge and always getting in squabbles with Real Madrid's, players like Pepe and Sergio Ramos. There was a bit of that angsty feeling between those kinds of players. And then you had, the Puyos, the Casillas, the Xabi Alonsos and the Xavis, who are always trying to be like, the mediators between that, just to keep things calm, because, these guys are Spanish national team teammates at the end of the day, right? So we had all that going on back in the Mourinho days. There was a lot of foul, just dirty play going on in the Clásicos. We all know how Messi used to get kicked and stomped on and all that other kind of stuff. And when Ancelotti came in, gentleman that he was back then, he really calmed a lot of things down. And that continued as well under Zidane, where the focus was more on the football and being better than Barcelona on the pitch, not kicking Barcelona off it. Recently, though, that's began to change. And I don't know, maybe is it because Barcelona are now the dominant team again? Because, of course, back then when Mourinho was having his guys kick our balls, was having his players kick Barcelona's players, that was due to the fact that, Barcelona's players were just that much more superior when it came to playing football than Real Madrid's. And, he needed to give his players that kind of an edge. Is that what's starting to creep into these Madrid players again? Likes of Ceballos and Carvajal? Because, last week we saw during the Copa del Rey Clasico, we saw Ceballos pulling Gavi's hair for what was really not much of a reason. Gavi was just doing some standard time wasting, which any professional footballer has done. And Ceballos was so triggered, he responded by, pulling Gavi's hair. And it's a bit funny. It's a bit weird, I guess, because the same Ceballos, when Gavi got back at him, because, Gavi is Gavi, and Gavi doesn't forget. And when he gets the chance to leave a leg in on you, or, just go in a little bit harder, he probably will do that. And that's what he did to Ceballos. And after the match, Ceballos is up in arms talking about, Gavi should have been sent off for that. It's like, really, dude, you are talking like this after you were pulling the kid's hair, and like you end up being dominated by this kid, which should be embarrassing for you. And we saw Carvajal as well, like angering Ana Orteñas. Like, obviously he said some things to Ana Orteñas, like you could just have a look at the footage here. He says some things to Teñas which do not go down well at all with the kid, and he was ready to throw hands. Like, Carvajal was about to just get knocked out again. Kind of like he was flatlined by Lewandowski in the build-up to Balde's goal. Of course, Carvajal ran into Lewandowski, so it wasn't a foul there. But yeah, it's got me looking at those things, and I'm wondering, guys like Ceballos, guys like Carvajal, these are dudes who've been professionals for at least 8 years. In the case of Ceballos, for Carvajal, well over 12 years. He's been playing at this highest level with Real Madrid. And dude, you're in your 30s. Why are you picking fights with kids who are just out of their teens? Ceballos is literally picking a fight with the youngest player on the pitch, who just so happens to still be a teenager. It's like, why? Are you guys scared to pick fights with people who are around your age? Ceballos, why didn't you pick a fight with, I don't know, maybe Frankie de Jong or Frank Kessie? Those guys are your age. Why didn't you pick a fight with them? Are you scared because they're physically going to dominate you? Because, this teenager clearly physically dominated you as well. Carvajal, same, dude, you've been around long enough. You should know better than what you were doing. Anywho, that's looking at just the Madrid side of the reaction that we've been seeing from the Madrid players and also from some of the Madrid press coming out of this El Clasico. For Barcelona's side, of course, I think it's all been, what's that word I'm looking for? Gravy. Yeah? It's been good. It's been great vibes. And it was, honestly speaking, a very nice way to leave off things with this upcoming international break, because what's going to be lingering for now for the Barcelona players is just the fact that, they've got 12 points of a gap over Real Madrid coming back. And, that gives you a bit more room for error. That gives a bit more chance for Xavi as well to rotate his players, get more minutes for guys like Ansu, like Ferran, get more rest for the likes of Araujo, for more rest for the likes of Lewandowski. And it's going to be necessary because, talking about Araujo, we saw him during the celebrations in the dressing room with an ice pack strapped to his thigh. And it's been reported, of course, that he has suffered a groin strain, which is going to keep him out of action for 2 weeks. So, basically he's not going to be able to go for international duty with Uruguay, which I think I'm not saying he's not injured or he's faking his injury, but I just think it's a happy coincidence for FC Barcelona that he won't have to go anywhere. The same with Pedri as well. He's had a setback with his injury though. So has Ousmane Dembele, meaning that both of them, because both Pedri and Dembele were initially supposed to have been available right about, the time we're playing Real Madrid in La Liga, but they weren't. And that means that they will sit out the international break as well. So there's less risk of injuries, if you ask me, which, like I said, happy coincidence. I'm not out here to say that anybody was, deliberately excluded from selection for their national team because they have injuries, right? I mean, it's not like it's a trend that's happening around Europe with the other big teams like Manchester United with Rashford or Manchester City with Haaland. It's all just complete and utter coinky-dinky coincidence. Anywho, moving on to something that isn't a coincidence or isn't happy, we have to talk about Gavi's contract situation, because yesterday it was reported that Gavi's contract, the one that he had signed at the end of the January transfer window, that contract, his senior team contract, the one which gives him the number 6 jersey contract, well, it's been torn up now thanks to the appeal that La Liga lodged with the court that had ordered them to have Barcelona register Gavi. So that appeal by La Liga was successful, and Barcelona's appeal of the appeal was unsuccessful. The reason why La Liga's appeal was heard is due to the fact that, according to the rules that La Liga had stipulated, FC Barcelona were late in registering that new contract. So, that is basically just another blow in the ongoing battles between Javier Tebas and Joan Laporta. Remember Javier Tebas, the La Liga president, who has said that he wants to see Laporta out of that seat in FC Barcelona. He does not want to see Laporta as Barcelona president for reasons which, we can only imagine. Might have something to do with Super League, maybe not. But whatever the case, anything that's not for Laporta is exactly what Tebas exists for. So yeah, keep that in mind as well whenever you're hearing this news regarding Tebas and regarding Laporta and why they're so frosty with each other and how they relate to each other. Okay, so we've now come to the part of this podcast where we're going to talk about Negreira Gate, or Caso Negreira, if you would rather. So, just in case you are not yet brought up to speed or you're not informed, you're not sure what all of this is about, I am going to give you just a brief rundown here. Caso Negreira, or the Negreira case, it's coming from a man named Enriquez Negreira, who once served as a vice president on the technical committee of referees for the Spanish Federation. This whole spiel started when Enriquez Negreira was being investigated by the tax authorities for, tax fraud. It was just a run-of-the-mill, tax investigation where they ask you to say, all right, show us all your books. Let's see if you've been dodging or evading taxes or anything of the likes. And it was while they were going through those details of his books that it was discovered that there had been payments between FC Barcelona and Dancil 95, which is a company that's run by Enriquez Negreira, and that over a period of 17 years, FC Barcelona had paid Negreira a total amount of 6.7 million euros. And this was initially flagged by the tax authorities because, according to them, this was not income that Enriquez Negreira had declared. Okay, Negreira had not been declaring that, so probably maybe he was trying to evade paying taxes, or whatever reason that he may have had. That's speculation, by the way. Me saying he was trying to evade taxes, I'm not in any way, shape, or form accusing him of tax evasion. Should probably just say that for in case of any legal implications, blah blah blah. Oh, by the way, I should probably have put this statement in at some point earlier on before I started talking about all of this Negreira issue. Okay. The views that are about to be expressed here are not the expressed belief of Blaugrana everything, but it's just simply me discussing what I have seen, reports in the media, and just regurgitating what they said and giving speculation, which has nothing to do with the reality that may or may not be going on. Okay? So it's just me running through everything as the information has come out, and it's not me making any assertions or making any claims. Okay, now that I've given my little statement of don't sue me, we can just go ahead now and talk a bit more. So after the payments were discovered, of course, the tax authorities went to Negreira and said, hey bro, what's up with this? What's going on here? Okay, and after they asked Negreira, they then of course also went back to Barcelona, and they went to ask FC Barcelona, like, hey, yo, we found this and this and that. What's going on here, Wagwan, Barcelona. Wagwan. So all of this stuff was discovered as part, remember, of a tax investigation into Enriquez Negreira. And as a result, Spanish justice could still pursue Barcelona through criminal proceedings, which is exactly what they went on to, I guess, try to do. Let me just give more like a brief overarching statement on all of this. Then we're going to really start breaking things down and talking about what I think and also what has happened and what I think as a result of what has happened. So we're looking at, of course, this report here that's up on OneFootball. And in here they're saying if they found evidence of attempts to influence results on the part of Barcelona, it could lead to a charge of corruption between individuals, carrying a sentence of 6 months to 4 years for the Barcelona directors and presidents involved. Alternatively, they could have also been found guilty of disloyal administration, which is paying for non-existent services. And the same people, the board of directors and presidents, could have faced a sentence of up to 3 years. So there's a couple things which you need to first of all understand here, right? It's that the implications of what could have come from this investigation would have resulted in criminal proceedings, right? And the punishments would have been meted out to the Barcelona directors and the presidents that were involved. Okay, so the complaint filed by the prosecutor's office pointed to the club as responsible for a continuing crime of corruption, for sports fraud, and another of unfair administration and falsification in the commercial documentation. In the proceedings of the prosecutions, however, for now there is no evidence that points to a bribe to any arbitrator. Okay, so the complaint that has been brought forward by the public prosecution maintains that Barcelona reached and maintained a strictly confidential verbal agreement with Enriquez Negreira in order to carry out actions aimed at favoring the club in decision-making of the referees in the matches played by the team. Okay, so basically, Enriquez Negreira claimed that Barcelona were paying him all this money so that he could ensure referees made favorable decisions for Barcelona. And the reason why you're going to hear as well during these proceedings that they were only looking at the period for FC Barcelona between 2013 and 2018, the reason why that period is so important is because it's during this period, this is the only time in that entire, 14 years, was it 17 years, we had spoken about earlier, in that entire 17 years, Barcelona were paying Negreira for his services. It's only between 2013 and 2018 that Negreira was sitting as the vice president on that technical committee for referees. So it's only during that time, it was with the CTA that the public prosecutor, in this case, is bringing this case. And one thing that's important to also note about that date, 2013 to 2018, is that it falls outside the threshold of 3 years prior to date during which La Liga can be able to punish a team. So it's outside La Liga's statute of limitations. They can't look into this. That's why it's really being handled by the public prosecutor, and the public prosecutor is only looking at 2013 to 2018 because it's during that time that Enriquez Negreira was vice president of the CTA. Okay, so that's basically the basics of it, why Barcelona were being pulled into this, why the whole Negreira Gate thing exists. So this is now where we're going to talk about what the latest developments have been in this Negreira case. We had some new developments as of Tuesday night, and this is what came out in as far as the Negreira Gate and where it has reached. So this is a report from AFA or EFE, which is basically Spain's equivalent of like Reuters, they are a news agency. And one thing which is very interesting is that when the news was breaking about this Negreira Gate issue, we were seeing it everywhere. It was on ESPN, it was on your Sky Sports, it was on your, every Jim and Jack, Bleacher Report, The Athletic. Oh, so many outlets. Everybody had this. Everybody was talking about, whoa, Barcelona could get a points deduction. Barcelona could blah, blah, blah. Barcelona could get relegated. And we've spoken here already about the fact that that wasn't really something that could happen because this is outside La Liga's statute of limitations. So Barcelona couldn't get relegated or couldn't get points deducted. Anywho, all these outlets were reporting when all this news was coming out and when everything looked bad. But after the news that emerged on Tuesday, we only really saw it from one or two sources. So like I mentioned, AFA reported it and Bleacher as well reported it. And the report that came out goes a little bit something like this. According to the summary of the Negreira case, to which AFA has had access, the Treasury says that they are without evidence that the payments to Negreira influenced results on the pitch. Negreira recommended taking great care of Hugh Manzano for his projection, meaning that there was a report which was actually brought forward by FC Barcelona in which Negreira was telling them to, take great care with Hugh Manzano, giving them advice, which is, kind of what Laporta claimed. And also Barcelona asked Negreira for arbitration reports on their rival Real Madrid. So from the moment that this whole news broke and there was a statement that was issued by the club, which, you can go and check on Barcelona's official website. It's still up there. And in there, what the club said and what Laporta went on to also further reiterate is that FC Barcelona had been paying Negreira for services of, coaching their players on how to interact with referees. Okay, so what was found by the Treasury or by the public prosecution who were, carrying all of these things out, because, they involve the police, like we said, likely criminal proceedings. So they did involve the police, and the police went into the houses of different Barcelona board members of that time, directors and the likes, and amongst some of what they found, anyway, to put it that way, were reports, like I had mentioned already, on Hugh Manzano, on how, the kind of refereeing advice that they give of this referee is unlikely to take pleasure in players acting in such and such way. So if you're going to be in a match with this referee, try and do A, B, C, D, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. So there was a dossier on Hugh Manzano, a report on Hugh Manzano. There was a report on good old Mateo Lajos, yeah, everybody's favorite referee in Spain. And there were also some videos which were looking at FC Barcelona's players and how they interact with referees to try and show them, say, how you behaved here, how you behaved there. This is no good. You need to change this. You need to change that. These are all things that were found as evidence supporting the claim Barcelona made. Okay, so right now, as things stand, the treasury authorities, the arbitrators, the whatever, I don't know the legal speak, okay, but the guys who are sitting down and looking at this case maintain that they do not have any evidence that results were manipulated in Barcelona's favor after money was paid to Enriquez Negreira and his agency. So, in some way, there's a part of me which, wants to ask, like, hold up a second, if this Negreira dude knew that he was giving Barcelona reports and Barcelona have, Barcelona do have evidence to that effect. Like, why did he even bother telling anyone that there was, why did he even bother telling anyone that he was told to have referees be more favorable to FC Barcelona? Okay, at the end of the day, Treasury found no evidence that Negreira influenced results in favor of Barcelona, as mentioned in their report. One thing which probably is worth noting in all of this, and from the start of it, maybe it's a thought that I had, but I didn't want to say that out loud because during the time when the news was breaking, like I said, there were people making a lot of outlandish statements. Some people who were likening this situation to Juventus and Calciopoli, which for me was just like, wow, people just have completely no idea what's going on. They just think if a scandal is a scandal, then it's just the same as any other. There is a difference between match fixing and what FC Barcelona here were being accused of doing. With match fixing, there's a clear-cut advantage that is had by one team thanks to another team or another official or another whatever doing something which would have made that happen, right? And that's where the challenge is, I think, for starters, with this public prosecutor's case here when it came to Barcelona. Because the first question you would ask is, if Negreira didn't even document anywhere the reason why he was receiving payments from Barcelona, how do you jump to the conclusion that those payments were for referees to be favorable to FC Barcelona? How do you come to that? Where is the proof that that happens? If there's nowhere where it's written down, if there's nothing which you have that's written that says, FC Barcelona did so and so, and they gave Negreira this money for that and that, Secondly, how do you prove that there were favors actually, like those things actually happened? Like, how do you prove that this referee did favor Barcelona in this game and Barcelona won because of it? Like, did the referee disallow an opponent's goal for no clear reason? Did the referee not give an opponent a clear penalty for no particular reason? Did he call an offside when there wasn't an offside? Did he overrule a linesman and let a Barcelona goal stand which was offside? Like, those are the things, like, where are you going to point at those things and say, yeah, this is a game? And then even after you've done that, where is the confession from that referee that in such and such match, I was told to do A, B, C, D so Barcelona could win? You see what I mean? So it's very, very difficult to even prove what was trying to be proven here, to be quite honest, in this Negreira Gate business. And the other thing which you would have to say as well is that Barcelona would have had to be unable to produce anything supporting their claim, to produce any documentation to prove that indeed they were paying Negreira for such and such services. But clearly they were able to do that. So if you know full well that Barcelona do have those records, then why are you pushing this case? Which ultimately comes to, that question for me. Why was Negreira Gate even a thing? Because the timing of it was particularly awkward. And I mean, right now, of course, we're seeing Joan Laporta is just going full out, like full metal on his response. He's now already bringing lawsuits against people who, about 5 lawsuits against journalists for defamation in this Negreira case, and the club is also working on several more beyond just those 5. And so, it's pretty interesting. You ask the question, like, why exactly was this even a thing? And you look at the timing of all of it right before playing these big matches coming up in February and in March, because we all saw Barcelona's calendar for those 2 months, and it was looking pretty hectic. And then just before that calendar, just before Barca get into the business end of all of that stuff, all these rumors start popping up, it was honestly speaking, a bit sus, to be quite honest. And well, right now at the moment, the bad news for the people who were trying to push this whole Negreira Gate business, people who were trying their best to put it in our minds that FC Barcelona are cheats, that FC Barcelona bribe referees, that FC Barcelona use unfair means to win matches. All of that is basically just going out the window. It's getting flushed down the toilet. But there is the issue of damages, of course, that has happened to Barcelona's reputation. And that's the reason why Laporta is right now bringing lawsuits against different people for defamation. Because, we don't know how much business exactly Barcelona potentially lost out on, how many opportunities they could have had jeopardized because of the existence of those rumors, because of all those negative connotations that come with people associating your brand with cheating, with manipulating rules, and with doing illegal things, okay? Not just manipulating in a way that's like semi-legal. This is just full-on illegal activity. So it's going to be pretty interesting, again, to see how things will continue to develop in that sort of way. And right now, I'm looking at this crazy report that I'm reading right now. This is from Zach Lowy, and he is saying here that Jose Maria Enriquez Negreira gave gifts to referees with the money he received from FC Barcelona. And here's the part that you're going to love, guys. Listen to the gifts that FC Barcelona were giving these referees so that these referees could, give Barcelona the advantage in matches. All right, are you ready? No, it was not vehicles. No, it was not houses. Nope, it was not expensive jewelry. It was corkscrews. It was toasters. It was sandwiches. It was blankets. It was pants, laser pointers, wines, liquors, and lottery tickets. Sandwiches and lottery tickets, honestly. Look, Zach, if you're trolling here, this is some A-grade stuff. I tip my hat off to you. But if you're being serious, I am very scared for you, because I think maybe Laporta might sue you. And I guess maybe all these lawsuits, that's Barcelona's new financial lever, right? That's how Barcelona is going to generate more income. Anywho, guys, I think that's about that. We've covered everything that I would have wanted to talk about. It is, of course, an international break, so it's going to be a bit slow, but it won't be too slow. I'll still be here. I'll still be bringing you content. Like I had said during my match review for the El Clasico, I am currently working on a second part for the Barca Berg. So we're going to take a deeper dive into FC Barcelona's folklore, FC Barcelona's history, and hopefully I'll be able to give you a part 3 as well before the international break is over. That's the plan. I'll do my best, guys, to always just bring in some content, something like that. I might not give you much in as far as transfer rumors is concerned, because that's the side of thing I don't really like dwelling on, because, rumors are just like, people just sit on their toilet bowl and just write random stuff and just put it out there and it's a rumor. So yeah, that's why I'm not into transfer rumors. But other than that, I will be still here doing my best to bring you guys kind of content that I usually do. Whether it's going to be a long format like this podcast has been, this might be the longest episode ever of a Blaugrana Everything podcast. I thank you if you're still listening. I very much appreciate that. I appreciate your support. Do hit subscribe or follow if you haven't yet already done that. Find the podcast wherever that you usually listen to your podcasts from. It's on Google, it's on Spotify. And I thank you once again for tuning in. Do have a great day, and Forza Barça.